We love this movie, as you will see. Time to discuss it on Movies and Me. Welcome to a brand new episode of Movies and Me, and today I've got one of the biggest guests that I've ever gotten. Oh, wait a second. Wait, you're not that Christoph Waltz, are you?
No, sorry to disappoint. I'm the wrong one.
I thought we were going to talk about like Inglorious Bastards and stuff, but okay, we'll just change it up quickly. Welcome to Movies and Me, and today I have the first, I believe the first fellow writer that I know of to come on the show. Please welcome to the show. He's the creator of the Dead Oaks podcast and a fellow YA writer. It's Christopher Waltz, not Christoph Waltz. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. I'm so psyched that you picked this particular movie to talk about, but since it's your episode, I'm going to let you take the reins here. What have you chosen for the audience today?
First of all, I'm happy that you're excited about it because I was worried that when I suggested it, you would turn me down and say, no, absolutely, we're not using that movie. But I picked one of the best movies of all time and the best movie to come out of 1995, Jumanji.
I'm pretty sure a lot of Seven fans would disagree with you there, but you know what? Screw it. I love Jumanji as well, and I'm glad that you said that because that's another thing I have to keep pushing forward about this show. I don't give a fuck what Rotten Tomatoes says about any movies that are chosen on here, and that's the first thing I want to get into here. Jumanji has a pretty low rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but you know, it's still great. It's like a childhood classic for me. So, what is it about Jumanji that made it your choice for the episode?
It's one of those movies that I grew up with. I was about 9 years old-ish when it came out, and it like appealed to me as a child. But now, when I go back and watch it as an adult, I realize that it's one of those movies that you don't have to be a certain age to love. And I'm a millennial, so nostalgia is a really big thing for me. So sitting down to watch a movie that I loved when I was a kid makes me not feel like so much of an adult anymore. And also piggybacking on what you said about Rotten Tomatoes, I hope this doesn't get any negative attention, but I don't check Rotten Tomatoes for movie scores. I hardly ever agree with anything I see as rated on there, so I just don't even check anymore.
No, that's fair. I mean, and we'll get right into Jumanji now. I'm curious because you also write, and Jumanji is one of those movies to me that has so much imagination behind it, and it's just one of those crazy, ridiculous premises that you never think would work. But it works because the characters are so great. So, is there any particular scene or anything in Jumanji that you want to bring up first that kind of cements why it's your favorite? Like, I could bring up Robin Williams' performance, because that's honestly my favorite of his.
Yeah, it's a great performance of his, even if, like, okay, again, I'm saying things that are going to sound really bad, but like sometimes he gets a little bit on my nerves in parts of the movie because, like, as a kid, I was sitting there saying, like, no, this is a very serious situation and you're joking about it, which tells you a lot about, like, what kind of a child I was. But, no, he's amazing in it, and Bonnie Hunt is amazing in it, and I feel like she does not get a lot of recognition for that role, but I feel like she was just, like, phenomenal in that whole movie. But I think if we're talking about particular scenes, and this may be too many, but the three that really stick out to me as just like life-changing scenes are the stampede, when it busts through the library walls and it's just like they're running from it. And as a kid, I remember thinking, like, how did these actors not die? Because I didn't understand, like, oh, this is all computer graphics. And then there's the monsoon scene where they're hanging in the chandelier. And I don't know what it is, but as a kid, I was just always obsessed with chandeliers. So the fact that they were, like, sitting inside of one and surviving this flood, I was like, oh, that's really, really cool. I want to do that. And then the last one is the earthquake. Like, it's a 30-second moment of the movie, but that whole earthquake where the house is just ripping in two and you see it from outside and it looks so real. Like, I think it's just all of the mind-blowing computer graphics for a movie in the 90s. Like, everything looks so real that as a kid, I kind of believed it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, it does look a little dated when you watch it now, but it puts you in, like, that 90s kind of mindset, and what makes it not distracting, the CGI for me, is how well the characters are written. Like, Alan Parrish is a really good character. The kids are really good characters. They're not like archetypes. They're fully fleshed out, and that's surprising for a kids movie because you don't see that a lot nowadays.
Well, and the fact that like even the kids that come into it later, Judy and Peter, like Peter, since their parents died, he stopped talking, and that's something that I feel like you don't see in child characters, that they're really struggling with something emotionally, and it to the point where they don't speak. And then you have Judy, who like because of the same situation, their parents died, she became a pathological liar. And I feel like that's also something you don't see is these kids have these very real life effects happening to them because of something traumatic. And the movie, I mean, it kind of helps, like, even though they're trying not to die the whole time, it kind of helps them deal with these issues that they're struggling with. And it's not a type of movie where they say, oh, hey, you feel better about your parents dying now and you don't lie as much or you started talking. It's just one of those things that you see them grow as characters and they don't have to tell you that they're growing as characters. And I think that's very, very good.
Yeah, and that's also great writing, which I'm sure you've got a take on it because you're also a writer.
Yeah, absolutely. The writing in that movie is very it's very good for me because I always cringe when I see movies or even read books or stories or whatever where the dialogue between characters just isn't believable. And a lot of people say that dialogue is either the hardest thing for them to write or the easiest thing for them to write. And so when I see characters talking to each other in a way that real people don't talk to each other, it just really turns me off from whatever form of media it is. And that's not something that happens in that movie. Even though you're dealing with adults who are often speaking with kids, like it's very realistic.
Yeah, and I do want to bring up the kids again because Judy and Peter are very fleshed out and they've both got really clear character attributes to them that are really great. And specifically Judy, because I had a friend in high school named Anna who constantly got compared to Kirsten Dunst because she kind of looked like her. And seeing a character like this who shouldn't really be likable, but throughout it you kind of relate to her in a way, it makes you look at those kind of kids in a different light, and that's what I think a good kids movie could do. It could take a character that you may not like if you met them in real life and give you a sort of a new perspective on them, because she's really just being a liar to deal with her own struggles. She's not doing it to be an asshole.
And that's one of the things that, again, as a kid, I was watching it, and she, probably have in my head right now, is she lies to the realtor in the very, like, beginning of the movie. Their aunt is buying the house, and she lies to the realtor about how their parents died, I think like on a sinking cruise ship. And they managed to write a letter, and they put it in a champagne bottle, and they found it, and the kids read it. And I'm like, what kind of a sociopath makes up a whole story about your parents' death like that? But at the same time, I didn't dislike her. Like, it was kind of funny, but at the same time, it was kind of creepy that she would go so far to do that. But I never said, like, this is a bad person. She's a bad character.
She's just like, she's a confused kid. Yeah, and we'll get into the part that I'm pretty sure everyone likes to talk about when it comes to Jumanji. The whole, like, mythological aspect and the way that it plays with these jungle scenarios is just, there's something about it that's, like, so freaking fun. And specifically, I want to bring up the lion, because when I first saw that when I was a kid, I don't know if that was a real lion or CGI, but that scene is freaking terrifying.
So, I own the special edition DVD, which should be embarrassing, but it's not. And I watched, so before, when we were going to record this, I watched all of the special features, so I would know things that maybe I didn't know before. And the lion was a robot that they sort of modeled after the animatronics they used in Jurassic Park.
That's dope.
They basically said in one of the documentaries that if Jurassic Park had not been made, then Jumanji would not have been possible, because they used a lot of the same techniques that they used for the dinosaurs in that movie.
I didn't know that. That's making me want to go rewatch it right again after we're done recording this.
Yeah, exactly. And it was one of those things where I thought about it, and watching Jurassic Park as a kid, like, the dinosaurs looked real. Like, I didn't think they were real like I did the rhinos and stuff, but they also looked very realistic. So I get how they use the same technology and things like that. The one thing though that always pissed me off as a kid and as an adult is those stupid monkeys.
Oh my
They're
god.
not real at all. And I hated the monkeys. And I remember all my friends loved the monkeys and jumping around the kitchen and playing in the cop car and stuff. And I was just like, these things are awful and they're annoying and they don't look real and I don't like them. That was the one thing I hated in that movie.
The monkeys just serve as a specific point to, like, you know, kids are gonna like them, so they're gonna be on board with it, and it's like, oh look, cute monkeys and they're doing really weird things. Maybe I can do that if I ever pretend to mess up my kitchen back at my house.
Exactly. They were the comic relief, in my opinion, in a movie that with Robin Williams you don't really need extra comic relief, but they were there so the kids would be like, oh, monkeys, like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, and another thing I want to bring up, which I didn't really notice the layers about it till now, but I always kind of look at stories and I break down what they are as a core, and to me, Jumanji is a story about really facing your fears, and that's done really well in a sort of Peter Pan stage effect with Alan Parrish's dad and the hunter Van Pelt, who are both played by the same actor, and there's so many fun dynamics with you can do with that.
Like I was like checking my watch to see like if you were going to bring this up, and if not, I was going to bring it up. I did not know until I was probably about 20 that was the same actor. I never put it together as a kid. I don't know if I was supposed to or if I wasn't supposed to, but I never figured it out that it was the same man playing both Alan's dad and Van Pelt. And so like realizing it as an adult, I was just like, oh my god, like that makes so much sense, and this makes the movie so much deeper and so much more like emotional in a way that he's, you know, the biggest thing in the game he's afraid of is essentially his dad. Like I never realized that as a kid, and it probably would have freaked me out if I had realized it as a kid.
You just would have been looking at your own dad like, please do not buy a gun.
maybe not that extreme, but like I don't know, it just says a lot about that. I don't know if I want to say he was afraid of his dad, because in those scenes in the beginning, he's never really afraid of him. You can just tell that he and his dad don't have a relationship, and that, you know, his dad's just ready to ship him off to boarding school and have him become a rich guy like their whole family has been forever, I'm assuming. And he doesn't even stop to think like, is this what my kid wants? I don't know my kid. We just need to send him away. And I think that says a lot, that his biggest fear is his dad, or a man that looks like his dad or is played by his dad, or however you want to word it.
I took that in kind of a sort of deeper way. I took it as he's afraid of becoming his dad, and that's done in like 2 scenes later on when Peter cheats and he becomes like a monkey thing, and then Alan Parrish is yelling at him, and it's like, oh man, all these years in the jungle and I still managed to become my father. But you also have to imagine, what was it like when he was in the game? Maybe Van Pelt was like a mentor to him, and he said like, oh, if you want to survive this, you got to be a hunter like me. And that could be why he doesn't really consider Alan Parrish a man, and he just wants to kill him.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that they have, even though we don't see what happens to him in those 26 years that he's in the game, I think it's like absolutely believable that they've at least crossed paths with each other, probably multiple times, if they haven't like spent time together. I feel like Jumanji is the type of place where there's not a whole lot of people around, and so they probably had a lot of interaction with each other inside the game, and that gets kind of into speculative stuff that like we don't know what the filmmakers were thinking. But I also read a theory somewhere. I don't know if it was just an article or if it was on Reddit or what, but somebody said that Van Pelt, or that creature from the game, appears to whoever rolls the dice like as what they're afraid of. So it only looked like his dad to him, is what some people think. And I don't know if I go that deep into it, but I mean that would be kind of a cool twist that he sees him as somebody who looks just like his dad, even though like maybe that's not what he really looks like.
Now that I think about it, that would also link very well with Zathura, which is very similar to this movie, where that thing's about brotherhood, and you see the astronaut in Zathura, and it turns out to be the older version of the brother, and it's kind of like, what I'm afraid I could become is that I'll be neglecting my brother. So I could totally see that theory working. Maybe this character is sort of like a boggart in a way, or like how Pennywise the Clown is written, he becomes what you're afraid of. That actually makes it a lot more unique. That's really fun.
It does. And whether it's true or not, those types of things are always fun to just kind of think about and like believe if you choose to believe them, and if not, it doesn't really change the movie for you. So
Yeah, and there's one more part that I do want to bring up that I kind of love, but not a lot of people do. Like, this is usually the part that they'll skip over, but it's the scene where the vines suddenly attack. It's actually my favorite part of the movie.
that's I almost said that as one of my like most memorable moments because it's I don't know how to explain how I feel about it. But that whole like scene is the first really like terrifying thing we see happening from the game. Like the monkeys were funny, the lion, like okay, that was scary, but it didn't last that long. Like it chased them down the stairs and then they locked it up, whatever. The mosquitoes, they flew away. But then you have these vines that are actually like attaching themselves to the house and taking over this whole room that they're in, and you're just kind of like, oh wow, like this is getting worse. Like these things coming out of the game are getting progressively worse, and this one is by far like the deadliest. I feel like.
Oh yeah, and you gotta not cheer when he grabs the sword, smashes it on the ground, and then yells "Harvest time!" Like I didn't know Robin Williams could do those kind of one-liners.
Yeah, absolutely. And even as a kid, I was always just like, there he is again, like he's making a joke out of a really scary situation. But watching it as an adult and being somebody who has a very like dry wit, I'm just kind of like, I can't say I wouldn't make a joke at the same time because you're literally grabbing a sword and you're killing a giant plant that's trying to eat a little kid. Like, why not make a joke while you're doing it? Why not throw out a one-liner? And that thing, that pod that tries to eat him, that's like the stuff of nightmares. Little Shop of Horrors, like scary plant trying to suck you in and actually eat you is some scary stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I can't not talk about Jumanji without bringing up the scene in the shop, which seems like it's straight out of Home Alone.
Are you talking about when he buys the gun?
Not when he buys the gun, but although that is kind of Home Alone, but when they're in like the market and they all like set traps for him and everything, it just reminds me so much of Home Alone.
So speaking of, you said like the Vine scene is the scene that a lot of people skip over. That's kind of the part, I don't skip over any of it when I'm watching it, but that's the part that I would skip over if I needed to skip something. It's not that like I don't like it. I just think like in that I don't know, like 10 minutes of movie, it becomes very almost cartoonish, and it takes you out of how kind of scary it is for a few minutes. But again, you have to think about like there were 9-year-olds watching this movie when it came out, and they have to have some things in there that like a whole wall of paint cans fell on them and they're okay, like they're not hurt. When in actuality, they probably have broken bones.
Oh yeah.
I don't love that part of the movie, but it's still fun for what it is.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up the thing about when he buys the gun, because you'll completely miss this if you're a kid.
I love, it's maybe my favorite line in the whole movie.
Yeah, you're not a postal worker.
Yeah, and I didn't understand as a kid what going postal meant. I didn't know that postal workers apparently in the 80s or 90s had a habit of shooting people. Like I didn't know that was a thing, but now as an adult, I look back on it and I'm like, that's a really clever line that is fun for the adults, but the little kids aren't going to dwell too much on like, oh, what does that mean? I don't understand. So yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, and we're heading into the wrap-up stage, but just before we do, we can't not mention the final scene where he finally stands up to Van Pelt, and I always love this about Alan Parrish's character. Usually a hero in this moment would say that I'm no longer scared of you, but he says, I'm actually terrified, but he's still standing there and standing up to him, and that says a lot that they really committed to the character of this. They didn't want to just completely change him, and once again, that's rare in a lot of movies nowadays. So what are your thoughts on that, like based on when you saw it as a kid? Because I'm sure as a kid you were probably cheering because he won, but as an adult you kind of see the heart to it.
I personally love that he's not portrayed throughout the whole movie. Alan Parrish is not this like John Cena, big buff muscle guy who comes in to save the day. He's this average dude who, like women aren't going to swoon at and find all that attractive, and he's goofy and he screws up a lot. And at the very end, like in most action type movies, when somebody stands up to the villain, they stand up to them and they say, "I'm not afraid of you. I'm going to win." But you're right. Like it's again really good writing that he stands up and he says, "Yeah, I am really afraid, but I've got to do something. Like we have to end this basically." And on that same scene, when he shoots the gun and Bonnie Hunt runs in front of him, and you don't really know what's going to happen right for that one tiny split second. Did she get shot? Is she going to get shot? And that bullet that starts to like blow away or get sucked back into the game. I just think again that's just a really good scene to show that maybe she was even a little more fearless than he was, because she was going to dive in front of him to save his life.
Once again, you're making me think about it in new ways, and now I'm probably going to go rewatch it after this. But we're heading into the wrap-up stage now, so you've seen the show before, you know how this works. I want you to imagine that I've never seen Jumanji. So what are you going to tell me to get me to watch it right away? Because it's on my Netflix queue right now, and I've got it in Blu-ray over there. Sell me on it, dude.
Oh, man. You know what? There's this movie that stars one of the best deceased actors of our generation, and it's about a board game where terrifying things come out and try to kill you. Boom, sold. You don't need anything else.
Okay, that I think you just broke a record there. That's the quickest anyone's ever done that. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming on my show, buddy. And you're welcome back anytime. Maybe we can talk Zathura at another episode. I don't know if you like that movie or not, but it's very similar to Jumanji. So,
never seen it all the way through, so I would be willing to talk about it if I got to rewatch the whole thing. So,
well, I'll save that for you just in case you come back. So, for now, where can the people find you, and is there anything that you want to plug while you're here?
Well, Dead Oaks Season 2 is coming to an end. Actually, by the time this episode airs, Season 2 will have ended. So you can find all of Season 1 and Season 2 episodes on soundcloud.com/Dead Oaks Podcast. And if you ever just want to chat with me, you can find me on Twitter at Christoph_Waltz. Again, not the actor, but that's okay.
And for the people who don't know, Dead Oaks is like a horror anthology audio series.
Yeah, it's 2 episodes a month every 2 weeks, and they alternate between scripted episodes with voice actors, kind of that follow a storyline, and then the other episode each month is a short story written by horror authors from all around the world.
That's really great. You've managed to get together some other creators. I might even get in on that if you're ever looking for another writer, because you probably know I've got Midnight Myths coming out very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'll just say it on the record right now. If you want to submit a story for Season 3, I can guarantee you a spot on the podcast.
Well, I'll get to writing that right away. I'll think of something, and then I'll get involved with you. And if you guys want to continue the conversation, use the hashtag #MoviesAndMe, or leave us a comment below and tell us what's your favorite part of Jumanji, what's your kind of thing. And next week, Green Junkies TV Fights fact checker Billy Business is stepping into the ring to discuss Saturday Night Fever. And that is going to be a really, really great episode. And as always, you guys can find me at Nolan Dean 27. And if you guys like this episode, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.